mourning family that this brings back a certain memory. You don't need to have a good voice. You don't need to learn or know a language. It's something for us all. You can't hear me? How about now? Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you for telling me. We're going to begin with a nigun. A nigun is a wordless melody, and this is the same one that we sang with Nancy about a week ago at her bedside, surrounded by family. If you can't hear me at this point, you should move seats, because this is where the microphone's working. So you can sit over here, you can sit up this way. I'll wait. Okay, we'll figure this out in a second. Sorry, folks. I apologize. I guess while we're waiting, if you'll turn your cell phones off and your Apple Watches. It's also good to know where the exits are in case we need to leave quickly, behind there and behind me here. Shiva this evening is going to be at 7 p.m. at Alan's home. Everyone is invited to the house of mourning. So the nigun that we sang with Nancy was one meant to bring she and her family into a particular place, and so it's appropriate for us to do this together as we come into this place and space for the sacred purpose of memorializing, remembering Nancy Kessler. It goes like this. Na 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 na. Please join. Nice deep breath in together. And we let it out. Our poet shares words from Talmud about what one leaves when one is gone. Kol echad yesh lo shem. Each of us has a name, given by the source of life and given by our parents, given by our stature and our smile, and given by what we wear. Kol echad yesh lo shem. Each of us has a name, given by the mountains and given by our walls, given by the stars and given by our neighbors, given by our sins and given by our longing. Kol echad yesh lo shem. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love, given by our celebrations, and given by our work. Kol echad yesh lo shem. Each of us has a name. Friends, we're gathered here today to both celebrate and to mourn Nancy Lee Kessler. She was known as Nancy, Nance, Mom, Nana, Hadassah Bat Gustav, and good friend. She was respected and loved by everyone who had the honor to know her. Nancy was born in Chicago on August 27th, 1942, and she passed away here in Atlanta on September 6th, a week ago, surrounded by her family, knowing that she was cherished. The Hebrew dates of her birth and death are Elul the 14th, 5802, and Elul the 20th, 5783, respectively. She was 81 years old. Nancy had many relationships that made her life a blessing. She was daughter to Gustav and Julie, Zikaron the Bracha, and sister to Peggy. She was wife to Alan for almost 60 years. And they built a life together. May God be blessed. She was daughter-in-law to Dorothy and Benjamin. Nancy was beloved mother to Bruce and Janet, and mother-in-law to Randy and Dan. Sister-in-law to Jim, Dennis, Barbara, Ronald, Sharon, Mark, and Marilyn, as well as aunt and great-aunt to many nieces and nephews. Nancy adored her grandchildren, Maggie, Claire, Haley, David, and Lindsay. Clearly her cup runneth over. Nancy was the matriarch of an exceedingly close family. Each one of her people had a special relationship with her, and she's already deeply missed. Nancy's family describes her childhood as a happy one, with she and Peggy surrounded by love and warmth. From an early age, starting with Girl Scouts, Nancy jumped into her passions with both feet and emerged as a leader. She was charismatic and a connector and was comfortable being in charge. This spanned from summer camp to school activities and evolved throughout her life into her social clubs, her synagogue, her hobbies, and into the lives of all who are in her orbit. She was classy and spunky, with an energy and zest for life that reflected in everything that she did and everyone whom she cared about. She was charming and endearing, and she told it like it was and did not mince words. She liked to make people smile and appreciated beauty and style. She was a force. Alan, I really like the story of how you and Nancy met, in part because it reflects who the two of you were as a couple, as husband and wife. You both were at WashU. As was the custom in those days, sometimes sororities and fraternities would team up together to put on a performance. It was a chance to be silly and have fun and get to know one another. Your fraternity and her sorority, ZBT and SDT, planned a play with singing and dancing, and that's how you met. At the wheel of your car, you offer rides to groups of girls who needed transportation back and forth from the rehearsals. One of those young women was Nancy. Even in that first encounter, Alan, when she was one of a few in your car, you knew she was special. You were paired together for the play, and both were told to only lip sync the songs, if you didn't mind, but to go ahead and let loose on the dance numbers. Singing was not a strength for either of you, but dancing was a strength for you both, and so you did. Your first date didn't go so well. She wasn't interested in a second, but Alan, you persisted, and it's a good thing you did. You fell in love. In the few years after you graduated, while Nancy was still in school, you would go to extremes with long drives in order to see her often. When you were together, life was fine. When you were apart, you both pined. She was ready for you to propose while she was still in school, but you insisted that she graduate first. And when you did propose, on her birthday no less, she said the magic word: yes. I wonder, Alan, if somehow in that first car ride, with the music playing and all the noise, with those first words of greeting to Nancy and her first response back to you, I wonder, Alan, if you somehow knew that you were looking at the woman who will become your wife, your besheret, your soulmate, that you knew that you were seeing the amazing woman with whom you would have a home and create a family, to really live your lives together. We have a word for this in Jewish, Alan, a word for this type of love shared, this type of life lived: kadosh, sacred, elevated. When I spoke to Nancy's family last week, I asked them about Nancy's perfect day, what she would do, where she'd be, who she'd be with. They provided a flurry of answers, all of which spoken with excitement. Well, she'd be playing tennis in the morning, mahjong and canasta in the afternoon. She'd definitely do Pilates and water aerobics. No, she'd be in New York City for a play, whatever was hot on Broadway. She'd be with her friends. She'd be visiting family. No, cheering from the sidelines for our games. She'd be leading something at the synagogue. And in between it all, of course, she'd be shopping. Apparently, Nancy had a black belt in shopping and fashion, with an incredible style, an eye for quality. Each of her granddaughters shared memories of their shopping trips with their Nana, perhaps in the convertible, right after her hair and nails have been done, with the top down and the sun shining through. Nordstrom's or Dillard's or Lululemon, with lunch and conversation about anything that interested them, from friends to school to camp, sororities. She'd ask questions and offer her opinion. She had opinions. an incredible memory about their friends, their classes, but most of all, she really and truly cared. Caring was part of the essence of who Nancy was as a person. Her grandkids love how their Nana could relate to them at any age, at whatever stage of life they were in, and that she would share her own stories, teaching them by example. Now, David has his own memories of Nana, not so much shopping, but of her focused attention and care and love, baking cookies in their home, puzzles, chatting, of how Nancy and Alan would relish just sitting back and just watching them with a sense of satisfaction. For Bruce and Janet, it's not surprising that their mom was close with their kids, for they too always had an incredibly close relationship with their mother. She was always there for them to help, to fix, to make things better. When they got M&Ms in their lunchbox, it was like a wink from their mom that she was thinking about them. They were on her mind, that she loved them, even from afar, and always would. Her sense of humor and passion were the rhythm of their childhood home, with friends and relatives in and out of their daily lives, living with joy. When Nancy's family described Thanksgiving together, they spoke of the wonderful chaos in the home as the meal was being prepped, with so much noise and laughter, the dishes and the clanking and the kids and the chatter. This one's setting the table, this one's making the stuffing, this one's licking the cake batter. Nancy's decorated the table with her ceramic turkeys. It smells like heaven, and the kitchen is fit to burst. From across the room, Nancy and Alan find each other's eyes. Their gaze locks. And in that moment, they know that they are truly blessed for the family that they have, for the life they have lived, and for the days that they've shared. Your heart is overflowing with love, and together you really know that you have one another forever. Nancy, in life you were so clearly loved. So too in death will you be so very missed. So may your memory be for all who love you a source of joy and strength and blessing. Zikaron Libracha. I'd like to invite up son Bruce to share some words.
As I sat down to prepare for this morning, it occurred to me the last time I stood up to speak to a crowd of this size was probably at my bar mitzvah 44 years ago. It took a small miracle to get me through that moment. Hopefully another miracle will help us get through this one. On behalf of Dad, Janet, myself, and our families, I want to thank you for joining us this morning to honor Mom. All of us here today are a testament to a life well lived. I must admit that until Mom got sick, I myself didn't realize what a fighter she was. She battled for 4+ years. I won't carry on about the rounds of chemo or debilitating vertigo, but it was hard for most to picture having to do both at the same time, even having to relearn how to walk, but battle she did. She did that for Dad and for us kids and for her grandchildren and for Eunice and Virginia, with whom Mom had all but adopted and without whom none of us could have survived these last few years. But until her battle began, I didn't know she was such a fighter. To me, she was Mom. She was there to heal the wounds and provide hugs or encouragement or a kick in the butt, depending on what I needed. Randy, my girls will tell you I have a terrible memory. And it's not on purpose, but it's a coping mechanism, and I use it to forget the bad stuff. When I was young, she made me feel safe and accepted, and that was all that mattered. I was clueless as to how much she had touched people outside our family. Dad was at work, Janet was who knows where, and for me, there was a meatloaf on the table at 6 o'clock, so I knew it would all be okay. And that is the Mom I will choose to remember. In a private moment at the hospital, Mom said to me, "You're all going to miss me when I'm gone." And she was right.
I'd like to invite up daughter Janet.
Thanks. Just in case we don't get through it. You all know Nancy. She was the one keeping track of everything. She remembered your birthday, what you wore to the wedding, your favorite dessert, who was in a fight, what store to buy the perfect gift, who was in her first grade class, because she genuinely cared. My mom was a class act. She was always in style and knew what was hot every season. She was the only mom on the tennis court sporting pigtails. I remember her reapplying red lipstick on every errand and the final coat of red nail polish before she walked out the door for date night, which was literally every weekend. She planned all the parties for all the groups with attention to color, composition, and the right matchup of people in the seating charts. My mom was my best friend. She listened. I mean, really listened. I remember as a teenager trying to will myself not to share every detail of whomever I was on the outs with, but I could not. I was always an open book to her. She reserved judgment on my choices and let me learn from myself. She taught me to make my friends part of my family. She packed her love into the gifts she gave. School lunches packed with Fritos and M&Ms, the parties she was always planning, the compliments she gave, and her beautiful smile. She was a brave woman, always. She did hard things, like making new friends and trying new things like square dancing or archery or being president of clubs. She was brave when she fought cancer. There's a quote by Carla Mills, which she wrote down and taped on her desk. And it says, "You never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have." I'll end this with the motivational piece that she saved, because I think it speaks to how she thoughtfully faced each day of her incredibly beautiful life. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character. It becomes your destiny.
I'd like to invite up grandkids.
Growing up, I always knew that my Nana was the coolest. She was all the things we remember her as: beautiful, stylish, and always on her A game. I knew how high her standards were, so her approval meant everything to me. And on all of those shopping trips, I just wanted to show her that my taste was every bit as cool as hers. But what made Nana most special to me was that no matter my age, I always felt like she just got me. She listened closely, asked questions, and knew just where to pick up next time. She'd remember every detail, not just what my friends' names were, but who they were dating. Now I know that it was her ability to meet others exactly where they were that made her so exceptional. I'm thankful to have grown up with Nana as a steady, loving force in my life. Whether it was a dance recital, birthday dinner, or holiday, I could count on a hug from her. I'll miss her warm presence, her sense of humor that would always catch me by surprise, and the easy conversation we could pick back up anytime. I'll always be grateful for her love.
We're going to try to have Haley and Lindsay speak through the phones and their microphone. We'll see how this goes.
Okay, Haley, I'm putting you to the mic.
Okay. It's hard to put into words just how special of a woman our Nana was and how much she meant to each of us. I think as kids consider ourselves pretty lucky having gotten to grow up with our grandparents who played and continued to play active roles in our lives and were always present at nearly every event and milestone. Lucky for us, when Nana and Papa moved to Atlanta and met weekly visits and always getting to spend holidays together. This means the memories we have with Nana are endless, and the values she instilled in us we will carry with us forever. Nana loved fashion and style. Some of my most fond memories of Nana growing up were our shopping trips. Nana always made sure we had the latest trends and had an eye for style unlike any other. Not only did I get some new clothes out of these trips, but I got to spend often hours talking about life with Nana. Nana had the biggest heart and cared so much for every person in her life. She was a leader and showed us what it meant to be a leader. Nana's leadership qualities can be seen in each of us grandkids as we are all pursuing our careers and passions. Lastly, Nana was a fighter. Not only did she fight for what she thought was right, but she fought through every battle thrown her way, and we will always remember her as someone who never gave up.
Thank you, Haley.
Thank you.
Okay, Lindsay.
Go ahead.
Nana was the best. She had exceptional taste and always told us how it is. She loved hearing about the latest celebrity gossips and comparing the things she used to get with. Nana was never sure. She was always with the time, and that trickled down to her, making sure it was always perfect. Lots of grandparents make jokes with their grandkids about having holes in her jeans or how cropped their shirts were. Our Nana was the cool one who bought them for us. She supported us and cheered us on through every high and low. She was our biggest cheerleader, and I'm so grateful for the 22 years I got to spend with Nana. We're all going to miss her.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'll always remember Nana as someone who gave her all to her loved ones, especially her grandchildren. Growing up, Nana made sure to make every event feel special. Birthdays meant dressing up to go eat Italian food, then opening presents that had been prepared for months. Jewish holidays came with a signature meal and quality time at Nana and Papa's. Traditions were established and delivered on year after year, and all the while, Nana was running the show. And at the end of an event, you could always be sure that she would leave you with a big hug. But as Nana got sick and the world slowed down, Nana gave her all in a different way. She made an effort to come over to our house, even when it was too cold and there were too many stairs to climb. I could tell she didn't feel her best, but that never stopped her from working hard to make her loving presence felt at every stage of life, and that feeling will never go away.
Nana was the one I always tried to impress, not realizing I didn't have to try at all. In her eyes, her grandchildren were just the world. She provided love and support and believed us quite capable of whatever it was that drove our hearts. She went above and beyond to make sure there were as few barriers as possible to us grandchildren pursuing our dreams. It didn't matter if that dream was related to our careers, extracurriculars, or building connections and community. She was there for it all. She showed up for us in the most selfless way, watching us grow and supporting our passions, always asking questions and wanting to know more, always knowing what we needed in any given moment to feel good and whole. Nana excelled at being a grandmother the same way she excelled at being a wife, friend, and mother. I'm so grateful for the influence she had in our upbringing and the care she took in raising my own mother. I wouldn't have the life I have today without her. Thank you all for being here and helping us to feel the warmth of her love. We love you, Nana.
I'd like to invite up friend Cookie Aftergood to share some words.
Believe it or not, I was one of Nancy's first Atlanta friends. And we're almost related, which was something we found out. Many years ago, when Alan and Freddie were playing tennis, and they were at a round robin, and they were both out at the same time, Alan mentioned, "I'm not going to be here for 2 weeks." And Freddie says, "Oh, why?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to St. Louis and Chicago." And Freddie says, "Well, I have friends and relatives in both cities." The following week, Alan comes to play tennis with a list from his mother. Every one of Freddie's uncles was mentioned in the list. So growing up in St. Louis, Alan didn't realize that Freddie's uncle was his father's best friend. Beside that connection, after I met Nancy, we had another connection. Nancy's sister Peggy in Chicago was a co-owner of a wonderful store called Material Possessions with Freddie's cousin's wife. So there was another connection. So we were not just friends, we were extended family. Now, Alan gave me the privilege to say a few words about Nancy. And he said, "Would you mind saying a few words about Nancy?" People that know me know that's almost impossible for me to say a few words about anything. But I did give it some thought, and without being repetitious, because so many of the adjectives have already been said, I'd like to just say, Nancy was very courageous. I didn't hear that this morning, but she was very, very courageous. Going through the treatment she did with a smile on her face. Now, I knew there were times, because I've experienced similar chemotherapy, and it wasn't always so pleasant, but she always had a smile on her face. And I can say that she did it with grace. Grace was another word I heard today. So she was courageous, and she had grace. Nancy also had style has been mentioned, but she loved earrings and she loved shoes. And I can say that we went on a traveling trip to Chicago and St. Louis with Alan and Nancy in the car. And going up, Alan knew exactly which antique place to stop at on the road because she loved to go antiquing as well. So Nancy was a very special friend, and I can just say she was always the 2 P's, prim and proper. And I'll miss you, Nancy. Thank you for being my friend. Oh, I forgot something. This is a little poem that I've had for many, many years. It's called Remembering Me. Fill not your hearts with pain and sorrow, but remember me in every tomorrow. Remember the joy, the laughter, the smiles. I've only gone to rest a little while. Although my leaving causes pain and grief, my going has eased my hurt and given me relief. So dry your eyes and remember me, not as I am now, but as I used to be. Because I will remember you all and look on with a smile. Understand in your hearts, I've only gone to rest a little while. As long as I have the love of each of you, I can live my life in the hearts of all of you. Thank you.
And finally, I'd like to invite up friend Annette Rao.
This is a poem by David Hawkins. She is gone. You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she has lived. You can close your eyes and pray she will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that she's left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her, or you can be full of love that you shared with her. You can turn back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. And you can remember her and only that she's gone, or you can cherish her memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what she would want you to do. Open your eyes, love, and go on.
There'll be more chances to share stories tonight at Shiva. Friends, I'd ask that you join me in Psalm 23, sometimes known as the Lord's Prayer. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Please rise for Emanu-El Rachamim. Emanu-El Rachamim. Shochen bamromim. Hamatzei menucha nuchona. Tachat chanfei hashchina. Im kodashim atoharim. Kizoher harakei amazherim. Et nishmat Hadassah Bat Gustav, Shohacha le'olama, Ba'al harachamim, Yastireha besater kanfav le'olamim, Vayitzor betzor chachaim, et nishmata. Adonai, Unachlata V'tanuach b'shalom Amishkava V'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Nancy, who's entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen. I'm going to ask you to sit for a moment just so I can have you rise again in a minute. Please have a seat. The tradition of saying mourners Kaddish as not only part of but concluding a memorial service has a theological and a psychological component to it. Theologically, our sages say that when we say Nancy's name in this particular time, she has what's called an aliyat hanefesh, an ascent of soul. Psychiatrists would say that we are flooded by sacred memory by going through this particular ritual. And of course, they're not mutually exclusive. They can both happen at the same time. So I'd ask for the mourners to please rise. And if it is your custom to rise in solidarity, that you do so now. I want you to picture Nancy in your mind, and I want you to picture her healthy and hale and strong. Picture her right next to you, her presence very much here. And in your mind's eye, your eyes find hers. Her gaze meets yours. And together, you slowly begin to smile. Yid Gadal, V'yid Kadash, Shmei Rabbah, Be'alma Divra Kirotei, V'yamlich Malchotei, V'chayechon of Yomechon, Uv'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Pagalav Yisman Kari V'imru, Amen. Ehe Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, Le'olam Olamei Almaya, Yid Barach, V'yishtabach, V'yipa'ar, V'yitraman, V'yitnaseh. Vita dar, vita la, shmei de kudsha, barichu, la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush berchata v'nechamata, damiram be'alma v'imru, amen. Ehe shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imru mav, v'yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru Oseh shalom b'imromav uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Nice deep breath in together. Let it out. And we say, Zikaron the bracha. May Nancy's name and memory be a blessing for you always. Thanks, everyone.